despite only being 0.02% of the population. This is the third time a black person has made national news for crime in Japan this year. Loud black women have found Japan.
Oh no.
And yes, there's also Kurds as well. Here they are just fighting in the street, surrounded also by other minorities as well. They're just having a wrestle. And there's a big crowd of people watching it. They're all non-Japanese. He was convicted of a Japanese schoolgirl on a train. Because, of course, the Pakistanis have earned their worldwide reputation.
イギリス人気番組日本の将来を心配してしまう。こんにちは皆さん。心配エリートです。イギリス紳士たちが日本の未来を今心配してくれてます。最近は円安や SNS、アニメ人気もあり、世界的に日本ブームなわけですが、移民も増えている現状の日本。それに伴い犯罪率なども上がっているという現実ですが、とある人気 YouTube チャンネルがこのことについて統計などを用いて日本よさよならという題名で我々に警報を鳴らしてくれています。欧米諸国も今ひどい状況なので実体験を交えて日本を心配してくれている2人。とても有意義な動画だと思い皆さんと共有したかったので翻訳してみました。それでは早速見ていきましょう。高評価やろう。
Japan, known for being culturally homogenous. That's what most people know Japan as, other than, having nice food, very orderly and tidy cities, very polite, fast train. And yes, they have recently had a little batch of multiculturalism, and I'm going to look at how it's going, because I covered it once, and I'm going to cover it again, because it's already gotten worse. You're starting to see articles like this. Is Japan, this is January of this year, finally embracing immigration? And it's not that the people in Japan wanted it, it's that the international elite have pushed it upon them because they had a problem, which was they've got a lot of debt to GDP, and they've leveraged this problem to impose this upon them, lest potentially even worse consequences.
I mean, there always has been a little bit of immigration to Japan. I mean, normally it's temporary. I mean, I know people who've gone out there and lived and taught for 10 years or so. And apparently it's a bloody wonderful place. I mean, you can just leave your bicycle unlocked outside a major train station and come back days later and it will still be there.
It's also worth mentioning, in Japan's countryside, century-old firms learn to embrace foreign workers. So they're even trying to get foreign workers in the countryside. This is the New York Times covering this, which should bring alarm bells that they're doing the same thing that's happening in, say, the UK, US, all the other European countries, where they're sort of just circulating third worldists throughout the entirety.
Third worldist, is it?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, well,
who else would it be?
Because I mean, I was kind of hoping it was going to be people from other because Japan is clearly a prime example of a high trust society. So if you bring in other people from another high trust society, if you want to bring in Danes and Swedes or something, I can see that working.
British people, perhaps.
Yeah, but if they go down the Infinity African routes, they're going to get a different outcome.
Somewhat prophetic, yes. That is exactly what's going to happen. And in fact, they're also getting Chinese as well. For many leaving China, it's Japan, not the US, that's the bigger draw. So obviously, you don't need to be a student of history to know that the Chinese and the Japanese tend not to get along very well.
Well, the Chinese have very bad manners. And you should see them eat.
Very messy. What?
And you should see them eat as well. A lot of them don't even close their mouth when they eat. Not the Hong Kongers. I like the Hong Kongers. They're great. But mainland Chinese...
Well, I remember I was looking at... I got offered a university position in China and I humoured it for a little while. And then I read that it's common to find children allowed by their parents to go to the toilet inside simply because they don't know that it's wrong. And I was just like, right, no, gone.
Yes.
Nowhere near. But here are skilled visa holders, so obviously they're not the ones causing lots of problems, but it surpasses 250,000, which is up by 20.8% compared to 6 months ago, which is a massive increase.
So 250,000 skilled, Westerners? I mean, that doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah, well, it doesn't necessarily divulge who they are, but what we can see is here are the number of foreign nationals living in Japan from 2014 to 2023, and you can see a clear trend here that is slowly ramping up to more and more foreigners and that is the number of residents in the millions. So
Again,
just raw
it's
numbers.
It's not wildly out of control yet. I mean, it's
not.
Okay, a population,
still,
whatever it is, like 90, 100 million.
I think what was it, 125 off the top of my head?
Yeah, I mean, we get their total allowance of foreigners in 2 years, and that's their total. So far, it's not so bad.
Yes, but that's only because it's just got started. I'd be very curious to see what 2024 is and whether it's going to be a massive line shooting straight up. So let's see what this has brought them, shall we? So here is a story. 2 African migrants were arrested at a hotel in Tokyo for stealing 34 million yen in cash. And they say, here's a nice despite statistic for you, despite only being 0.02% of the population. This is the 3rd time a black person has made national news for crime in Japan this year, because these sorts of things do not usually happen.
Is it possible that no matter what the first percentage, the second percentage, they're always 50% of crime? I don't know.
I think those 0.02% would have to be even more industrious than their Western counterparts, to be honest.
Yeah, but the Japanese just don't commit any. So
that is true. So let's have a look at, say, some of the nightlife here, and you can notice
that's in Japan.
That's Japan. A distinctly American-looking scene here.
It looks like Philadelphia or something.
I know. There's even people
twerking.
They're
On this. Oh no.
Look at what has happened. Here we go. Loud black women have found Japan.
Oh no.
Look what you have done, world, to the poor Japanese.
When I think of Japan, I think of those beautiful temples and the cherry blossoms and the tea making ceremonies, and now it's fat women twerking on the street.
It's worth mentioning as well,
fistful of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Here is another statistic here. Here are crimes versus how overrepresented they are. And apparently Africans are 2.57 times overrepresented, and the next best overrepresented are the Chinese and Vietnamese. And then it's South America, North America, Europe, and then finally Oceania at the end.
Right,
underrepresented.
I don't believe those numbers for a start, because
it should be higher, shouldn't it?
I did a segment a couple of weeks ago on the FBI crime stats with Carl, and in the US they are 11 times overrepresented.
No, it's similar to
so I can't believe
London as well.
I can't believe they are only 2.5 times overrepresented, but maybe that's true. I don't know.
Maybe you need a critical mass, because the funny thing is, in the US they're about 12 to 14% of the population. It's the same for London, and as that's their section, their cross section of the population. In London, 63% of crime, about at least over 50% of, and the same thing in the US. So there is an obvious pattern here. And yes, there's also Kurds as well. Here they are, just fighting in the street. We're surrounded also by other minorities as well. They're just having a wrestle, and there's a big crowd of people watching it. They're all non-Japanese, and this is just going on a nice orderly Japanese street, which to my mind seems sacrilegious. And they've had their share of Muslims. Here we are, a bunch of Muslims doing some sort of Muslim ritual through the streets of Japan in the rain, doing some sort of, what's this, self-flagellation thing? I don't know. But there is more. Here they are, parading through the streets, not really respecting Japanese culture. They're not really integrating, are they?
They're not seamlessly fitting into their environment. They're kind of belligerently
taking over,
yeah.
Almost like they have it everywhere else. They're not willing to integrate because they're culturally dogmatic. They want to impose their culture on other people. That much is entirely obvious. Here is a Kurd just releasing fireworks, or I don't know, a firecracker, a flare, something like that, just on the street for no reason.
When I go to a foreign country, I try and make an effort to
be respectful.
Yes, be respectful and fit in. These folks aren't doing that.
Yes, and on the darker side, so this guy, Pakistani, Yes, there are Pakistanis in Japan now. 25,000 of them in Japan now. He was convicted of a Japanese schoolgirl on a train.
Yes.
Because, of course, the Pakistanis have earned their worldwide reputation. And it's the same wherever they go. And, yeah. Here's another one as well. Chinese man at night in Shibuya in Tokyo. This sort of thing hardly ever happens in Japan. Again, another preventable disaster. And here's another one as well. These are Cambodians, and they were for stealing copper cable from solar power generation facilities in Koshu. And apparently their resident cards had expired, but instead of going back to Cambodia, they stayed and decided to steal copper wire, like our very own homegrown in, say, Britain. And they don't need to put up with this. If you have your culturally homogenous country, everything works. If you invite in foreigners, they do stuff like this. They take liberties, they steal, they you. They do all of these the things that have just happened. Japan is a high-trust society. They don't lock up their bikes. And now they've had to create promotional material to encourage people to lock up their bikes, because it's not enculturated in Japan to do this. And I mean, I never used to lock up my bike where I grew up either. It used to seem ridiculous that someone in my neighbourhood would steal it. And yeah, now they're having to do this because their nice functional society is becoming dysfunctional.
Well, I mean, Connor told us his story of how he went to Japan and he left his phone in a cafe in a train station, and then went off for the day. Realised he'd left his phone, but it was on the train by then, so he just assumed that it was a write-off. Got back to the train station he originally departed from, and it was still there in the cafe, after in a major train station, just been left there all day and nobody touched it. Do you want me to try doing that in King's Cross?
But it is worth mentioning the Japanese still do send people back, unlike America and Europe. Yeah. Here's an African saying, I don't want to go back, you can't make me, and they're just ignoring him and making him go anyway. They got like 4 people, got him in a hold there, and they're just like, yeah, we're going to send you back. There's no debate about it. Well, you're going. Yeah. You're not staying here. And he's just like, no. But this is what you've got to do. If they're let into your country, you've got to send them back. It's as simple as that, Japan, and that's what you need to do.
If they force their way in, you force them out.
Exactly. So, international capital has forced this upon Japan, and I think it's evil. They should resist it. And now the Japanese are joining the fight for the survival of their civilization along with Europe and North America.
ということでどうでしょうか。最近実際に日本で起こり SNS で話題になった事例と移民についての統計を視聴者に紹介することでいかに日本に危険が迫っているかを親身になって話してくれています。彼らはイギリス出身ということで何度かロンドンの話などが出てきてましたが、皆さんイギリスの今の状況を知ってますかね。移民が増えてめちゃくちゃになっていて犯罪率もすごく高くなっていると。彼らが幼い頃は治安が良かったのに今は変わってしまった。だから日本はそんなことになる前に気をつけてほしいと。この動画は本当に日本の政治家に見てほしいです。イギリスの目線で話していることに大変大きな意義があると思います。ここでは紹介しきれなかったことも多いのでフル動画は概要欄から。それではいくつか現地の声を紹介します。日本よ、国と文化を守るんだ。日本は日本人の国、ヨーロッパも同じだ。日本よ、欧米諸国と同じ運命をたどらないでくれ。自分の国、自国民、そして自分の文化を守り抜いてくれ。日本はそのままに保つ権利がある。他の国でも同じだ。うるさい黒人女性が日本を見つけた。最近聞いた中で一番面白いフレーズだな。日本が日本で居続ける権利を僕は支持する。僕は日本の移民政策は強制されていると思う。アメリカやヨーロッパを見て、ああなりたいと日本が思うわけないからね。皆さんの考えもコメント欄から教えてください。このチャンネルでは欧米のマジかよっていうニュースを楽しく紹介しています。チャンネル登録、高評価、ベル通知、概要欄からインスタ、ツイッターのフォローしていただけるととっても喜びますのでよろしくお願いします。それでは一日を心配しゅ。